Teachers, what's the most awkward position a student has ever put you in? Story 1. I had a student, freshman 15-year-old, send me a picture of herself in lingerie with the line, "What can I do to get an A?" Had to protect myself, turned it into the administration. It was a very awkward meeting with her parents. She sent the picture to me via email. Her parents were mortified and were not bad parents. She was a very confused girl, who I believe got the help she needed. Story 2. I had a male model-like PE teacher who had to start dressing bad and not shaving to make girls stop having a PE note for injury so they wouldn't just hang around him. Story 3. A 9th grade student in my world history class came to my classroom after school to make up a quiz. She sat down across from my desk, and when I looked up, I noticed that her shirt was unbuttoned almost completely down to her waist. She had a scarf on, so at a glance she just looked normal, but she definitely unbuttoned her shirt almost all the way down right before entering my classroom, alone. I honestly thought for a second that the school may have paid her to test how much integrity I had as a male teacher. It was uncomfortable. Story 4. Had 2 students, girls, asked to go to the restroom, and I allowed them. They didn't come back until class was over. The girls explained they went to the bathroom because one of them was taking a pregnancy test. It was positive. I said congratulations, then recommended they go speak to the counselor or school nurse. A few have asked, and the girl did decide to keep her baby. Her boyfriend/baby daddy was arrested that same semester, and I have no idea how long he remained in jail. He was in my class as well, and I know he wasn't released that semester because I never saw him again. I saw my previous student one more time the following year after she had graduated, and she was working the drive-thru cash register at a local fast food restaurant. Story 5. I teach English in Germany, and sometimes taking literal translations can cause a problem. Once, while we were talking about going to the beach, I had a student ask me why she couldn't say, "I creamed my pants." Now, in German, to say that you apply sun lotion, you say "Ich creme mich," or literally translated, "I cream myself." As a result, a native English speaker friend of hers decided to joke and say that she could never say, "I creamed my pants" in English and not say why. So she asked me, her English teacher, in front of the class, who also began demanding to know. Needless to say, I went bright red and called to have an early break. That reminds me of the time a male student, I am female, asked me what a job is. I teach students with intellectual disabilities, and he was just asking an honest question. I told him it would be inappropriate for me to answer, and that he should ask his mom. In hindsight, maybe not the best thing to say. I can only imagine what he said.
"Hey Mom, Miss It's Windmill told me to ask you what a job is."
Story 6. My English teacher was put in a very uncomfortable situation a few years ago when one day during class, one of the girls asked if she could use the bathroom, and naturally he said, "In a little bit." 5 minutes later, she raises her hand again and my teacher replied, "I'll write you a pass now." Then the girl said, "Never mind, it went back in." The look on my teacher's face was amazing. Story 7. Student threatened to strangle me with his iPod cord, and then didn't. Story 8. One of my very good-looking male friends is a science/math teacher. He's one of those mad people that loves to make math fun, and honestly, his classes are like a damn performance. It's beautiful, but a lot of the girls in class just giggle and ask him if he has a girlfriend. He kept deflecting them and concentrated on making the class fun, but then they got nasty to a quiet girl he paid too much attention to. She was actually interested in math, and he gave her some extra material after class that he thought she'd like. He fully put his foot down and demanded a parent meeting with all the girls in question and told them straight up they could either act like mature people or get out, and that he didn't deserve to be borderline sexually harassed while working. Most of the parents were just mortified their daughters would behave like that, but a few were like, "It's a compliment," etc. Luckily, admin was on his side. That's a thing I don't understand. You tell someone, "Hey, this makes me uncomfortable," and they angrily insist that it's a compliment instead of apologizing. Good on him for standing up for himself. Story 9. I am a gay teacher. One day when I was teaching middle school and one of my female students told me she had to go to the bathroom. She came back and told me in front of the class that her period came. It was her first period. She had no idea what to do. She was not wearing anything, and she was in great pain. You could see the blood coming in. I calmly told her to go to the nurse. I am a 28-year-old gay male, and I still have no clue how a period works. And to my student, Brittany, it is okay to cringe at the fact that you told your gay teacher and 20 other students that you started your adventure to womanhood. Because of you, I carry pads in my desk. Story 10. When I was teaching high school, a little twit named Austin found out it was my 45th birthday and launched into a spiel in front of the class how I should be sure to get a colonoscopy as I was now at that age. Story 11. College student here. A classmate in my police investigations course is the instructor's granddaughter. One day we were talking about sexual assaults, and the instructor asked what type of evidence could be left behind on a condom. The granddaughter quickly raised her hand and said, DNA from saliva. The instructor, her grandfather, asked her to elaborate. I was horrified as I watched her gesture as though she had a in her hand and ripped the package open with her mouth, hence the possibility of saliva evidence. Story 12. In middle school, during sex ed, the teacher was preaching abstinence until marriage. The teacher was single, so a student asked him if he was a virgin. Awkward for the teacher because he didn't know which was worse, admit he was a hypocrite or admit he was a 40-year-old virgin. He turned bright red and let us go to recess early. Haha, that's great. When I was in middle school many horrible years ago, I remember sitting in sex ed and my PE teacher, Mr. Real, talking about condoms and how we should use them. Someone asked a question along the lines of, why should we use them? And very slowly and awkwardly he said, because skin on skin hurts. I can now remember seeing the lies in his face. Story 13. When I did student teaching at a high school, one male student in the string ensemble I was leading asked, in front of others, if he could learn cello because he wanted to play something he could hold between his legs. Story 14. Ran into one of my students at the store. The only things in my cart were duct tape, tampons, and motor oil. He looked at my items, and his eyes got large. Not sure what he was imagining I was going to do, but we both acted like it never happened the next day in school. Story 15. Some context. I teach students with intellectual disabilities. Imagine being an 8-year-old in a teenager's body. These kids are just honest and always say what is on their mind. Not a lot of understanding of social norms or socially appropriate behavior. One of my students comes up to me and asks to speak to me outside of the classroom. I thought maybe he was dealing with something personal and needed to talk about it, so I said okay. He proceeds to tell me that I am the sexiest thing he has ever seen. I had to try to squash that right away. I told him that he can't say that to me because I'm his teacher, it's not appropriate, etc. After that, he asked for a hug. Lesson not learned. Story 16. I had a student tell me, quietly in the back of the room, how she was struggling to concentrate and would likely need to leave in class for an extended period of time because she had a UTI. I spoke with her after class, making sure she was alright. I had to find a very delicate way of explaining the importance of peeing after sex and generally reminding her to always use protection, without directly saying those words. I am a male and it was a conservative town, so I could have gotten into serious trouble for not encouraging abstinence only. I just wanted to make sure she was informed and safe. Story 17. I teach middle school. Hope that counts. Last week, a 13-year-old boy asked me what happens when a girl gets turned on. All I could say was, go ask an experienced friend. I'm going to pretend this didn't just happen. I'm a young female teacher. Yikes. Story 18. Teach middle school, so most of the time it's awkward. Fairly soon after I'd broken up with a long-term boyfriend, a student asked me why we'd broken up. I swear it wasn't weird that the kid knew. They'd seen me with him around town. So that was fun. Then the kid threatened to take him out for me. A 6th grader asked me how reproduction can define an organism as living versus non-living if boys cannot make babies. Shouldn't this mean that boys are non-living? I sent that kid right on down to the health teacher. Story 19. A boy in a dance class at my school was going to have to wear skin-tight leggings in an upcoming performance. Now, serious male dancers usually wear what is called a support, like a heavy-duty supportive G-string, under leggings to tuck everything away neatly. However, the school I teach at isn't a specialist dance school, and we don't have many male students, so this wasn't an issue I've had to deal with before. It was decided that the school would purchase the support for him since we had to make a trip to a dance shop anyway, and we knew what to look for. Cue an awkward phone call with the student's mother to explain why his teachers were buying him a G-string. Story 20. I'm a new teacher, in my early 20s with a student who is almost too old to be in high school. 21. I was really short with him one day because he was being an asshole, and he responded, I know why you're so crabby today. You're mad because your boyfriend beat you. He then yelled at me the whole way down the stairs as I escorted him to the principal, demanding that I tell him why he was in trouble. Made me super uncomfortable because he was almost my age and clearly didn't respect me as a teacher. His comments were way over the line, and he got removed from my class for it. Story 21. Current teacher at college is a young man in his 20s. Those considered popular other girls in my class will constantly call his name for help, but sometimes they just call his name for his attention, and give him nicknames, which he always becomes awkward in response and just goes, "Don't call me that," and ends up standing awkwardly with one of those straight faces that says, "I want to stand over here now." Edit. I'm in a rather small college. There's quite a few people well known in the college, ranging from the probably going to be a rapist to the ones who bunk, drink, and cause trouble. It's a lot different than a large college, which I was in one moving to this one. Can't confirm there's no popular or unpopular in big colleges, but in this small college, there is. Not sure about others. I'm in the UK. Story 22. I burned my hand during the weekend with a jar of hot wax, the waterproofing kind, that cracked. As a result, on Monday, I was wearing a bandage, and my teacher asked why I didn't get my homework in. I said I burned my hand. He asked, "Oh, sorry, why?" I responded, "Hot wax." Now, I was a class clown who regularly competed with another class clown. The other class clown, let's call him John, said, "Suitology, you DeWitt. You're supposed to drip the wax for that kink." I replied, "Your room is a mess, John. How was I supposed to find the instruction manual?" The teacher, noticing we were about to take up a few minutes of class, told us to stop. John decided not to and replied, "Mr. H, his safe word is Bulligard. Stop won't do anything." Mr. H. What? John. A safe word. It's a word that... Mr. H. That's not what I know what a safe word is, John. I'm saying... John. Ugh, gross. TMI, Mr. H. Story 23. One time in high school, when my class was in the computer lab, two classmates asked if they could go back to the classroom because they forgot their books. The teacher, a fairly attractive young blonde, thought nothing of it and gave them keys to the class. The two boys went back to the classroom to find her phone sitting on her desk. They opened it, went through her messages, found news she sent to her husband, forwarded the pictures to themselves, proceeded to forward the news to the entire male student body. Unfortunately, a couple weeks later, she was convicted with a DUI and was let go from the school due to personal reasons. Sad story, because she was a nice lady and really didn't do anything wrong. Story 24. Subbed for a high school Spanish class one day. A female upperclassman showed up during my planning hour looking for the normal Spanish teacher. After being informed of the teacher's absence, she stuck around and initiated small talk, claiming she was a teacher's aide in the gym and wasn't needed on this day. Based only on my own instinct, she seemed a little too friendly for having never met me before. Just felt off right from the start. I propped my classroom door open and didn't really give her much feedback as I prepared for class, but she kept talking. And it kept getting more personal. Without any prompting, she began explaining how she'd moved out of her parents' house. She appeared to be 16 or 17, and now lived with 3 college-aged males while she worked as a waitress at what sounded like a strip club. That's typically not the type of thing to open up to a random substitute teacher you met 5 minutes ago. She segued from that to men's fetishes and how some of the people she served had a thing for pregnant women. It seemed like she was angling to see if I'd open up about my own interests. That wasn't going to happen. I try to be a good listener for my students under most circumstances, but this one set off smoke alarms. I stood up, asked where the drinking fountain was, already knew but needed an excuse, then promptly left the room and didn't return until my planning hour had concluded. I left school that day wondering if I was just being paranoid, or whether a girl with that kind of story is something I should have reported to the front office, or whether it's a home life thing and thus out of a school's control. One way or another, it probably tops the awkward teaching mountain for me so far. Story 25. I teach English in Japan. On this day, the principal was observing the class. The students were in elementary school, and we were going over adjectives. I asked the students to draw something on the board that related to the adjective. For example, draw for me something that is or was big. When I got to draw for me something that is or was cheap, some students showed me an eraser or candy, but one student drew a stick figure with an afro. I'm American, so naturally, in my mind, I freaked out. Since the principal was in the room, I had to act professionally. I asked the student why he drew what he has drawn. Apparently, he learned about slavery in the US and learned how much slave owners paid. Story 26. Not a teacher, but one of my teachers is young and very, very attractive. I feel really bad for him. He has the entire student body squealing over his face and abs 24/7. And all he can do is pretend to not notice. Story 27. Obligatory not a teacher, but I have a contribution. I had to take a health/sex ed class that was run by a very old, very religious lady. She did not handle the drug or mental health unit in a very scientific manner, but she managed to get the point across enough so that we could pass the tests. However, she was not comfortable with the sex ed unit. She gave one lecture that was basically, the tadpoles swim down the urethra and into the woman's
hole where one of them finds the egg and bonds with it. And that's how you make a baby.
All of us knew about sex, so no one really paid attention except for this one kid. Think Rowley from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. He asked, so very innocently, how exactly the tadpoles got to the egg. The teacher turned to us, hoping someone would volunteer an explanation, but the entire room decided to watch her squirm and seconded his appeal. So there she stood, clutching her cross necklace and trembling.
Well, you see, the tadpoles, the man, he has to, he puts the piece in the woman.
And so on. It was pretty hysterical, but now we know how tadpoles get to the egg. The runner-up for this class include another story from the innocent child. We were learning about tube litigations and vasectomies. The lad says,
"Oh yeah, both my parents had those surgeries, but I was born anyways. I was a happy accident."
It took a bit to get the lecture back up to speed. Story 28. Well, this is a story from a while ago, back when I wasn't working for the school, but gave music lessons and such while in school. One student was gay, but his family was very religious, so he found other outlets to display this side of himself, mainly through playing a character for a drama/improv class and creative writing. This had been going on for about a year, but the real meat of the incident is when he decided to release his latest publication. This was essentially erotic friend fiction with the two main characters bearing a striking resemblance to me and another student. The story contained explicitly sexual content, like not just vanilla, some kink was thrown in for good measure. Now, I was in the fortunate position that I wasn't a school employee, rather a clinician that just used the facilities for lessons, so I could pretend I hadn't seen it and hope that the discussion never led to me from the school administration. I basically kept my head down and let the whole incident blow over, but some kids just never really let it go and would tease me about it. In good humor, the fanfic was written horribly, and I was close enough in age to throw some shots back. PG, of course. So yeah, somewhere out there's a saucy romp into a repressed high school kid's gay fantasies with me as a phenomenal power bottom.